What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the BioDevils podcast. This one's going to be a little bit different because it's not exactly going to, I guess, be a structured podcast, so to speak. It's more so just speculation on an announcement from Gamescom, which is, of course, the announcement of Tormented Souls II, which is a sequel to the first game. We don't really have too much about it at the moment, so it won't be too long of a podcast, so we're just sort of be speculating on, I guess, what we want to see from the game and what we can expect based on our experience from playing the first game, and also just the little information, I guess, that we already have about the game. Yeah, so with me, of course, I have Randall. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here now.
And of course, I'm KaptainKaos, and I'll be hosting this one. And it's just going to be the two of us because I don't know if there has been too many people that have in our group that have played this game aside from Dom. Yeah, so like I said, we don't really have a list of questions or anything like that. I guess we're just going to be talking about the trailer, which is we got a pre-rendered trailer for this at Gamescom, which just showed the protagonist of the first game, Caroline Walker, walking through a church, and these hands coming up behind her to grab her, basically, and it's just kind of a teaser to get people excited for the game. And we got a little bit, like I said, a little bit of information about the game. I think one of the most surprising things was that they said they were going to be moving to Unreal Engine 5, which, based on the images I've seen, maybe it's just because they've kind of kept the same art style from the first game, but I guess I do notice like the environments are more detailed textures, but it does look like they've kind of kept the same general, I guess, art direction, because it does look very similar, just sort of maybe a slight visual overhaul. I don't know if you could tell any difference. I mean, of course, we just got a pre-rendered trailer, and we have, I guess, some images of gameplay on the store page and online, but really nothing much aside from that. So I guess it's just too early to really judge, but I'm just kind of basing it off of what I've seen there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. It's hard to tell like how much of a leap this will be. Granted, being that it's naturally Unreal Engine 5, it realistically should look better by default compared to its last work. Yeah, because just going by the trailer though, it looks pretty rendered though, but I'm wagering that this is actually in-game assets, because it's not uncommon for games companies these days to do in-game cinematics,
Yeah, I mean, well, if the screenshots do or anything to go by, I mean, it doesn't really look too different from that pre-rendered cutscene that we saw, if it is, pre-rendered. So, I mean, yeah, it looks at least pretty close to it.
For sure. I must say though, like going by what was there in the trailer though, I'm pretty impressed, because just going by just the fidelity, like you get the reflections from all the lights, whatever. The shadows looking pretty nice, good contrast. You get the fog, and then of course you get the main character sticking out pretty well like a sore thumb. So I am definitely looking forward to see how they can manage to improve upon their previous work, graphically speaking. Because like, let's be honest here, right? Animation wise and graphics wise, it wasn't the best thing out there. It was quite serviceable considering this was the first game, it was a small team, if I remember correctly, with that, right? So if they could take that and just improve upon it though, like these guys definitely earned all the praise they could get.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small indie studio, so I would hope that there won't be like technical issues or anything when it comes to this, because Unreal Engine 5, it's a relatively new, and even big devs like their games that have come out using Unreal Engine 5 have had, they usually don't come out without having some kind of problems, but I mean, I guess that could be the case for most AAA games, that they usually have these issues on launch. But considering this is a small indie dev, that doesn't usually tend to happen as much, I see in the indie scene. I mean, mostly because I guess their games aren't quite as ambitious as like a AAA developer or something like, but I mean, also considering that the first game was fairly linear, and also it was broken up by loading screens. It wasn't trying to render like a really big area, aside from maybe, I guess, when you get to like the main, I guess you'd say like the main lobby area or the hub area of the mansion. There are some big areas, but it's broken up by multiple loading screens. Very, of course, trying to sort of keep that same vibe, I guess, as the original Resident Evil games, where they were broken up by various different areas. So I mean, I'm sure this is going to be the same case in Tormented Souls 2, because they, especially with them saying there's going to be these different locations you're going to visit. So I guess we should kind of touch on that too. That, of course, this time the setting is different. It's not going to be set in just like a mansion like the first game. It's actually going to be set in a village, which I found pretty interesting because, I mean, it's when I think of village, I just kind of get reminded, I guess, of a Silent Hill game. So maybe they're sort of leaning more in that direction, because I mean, the first game had inspirations of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill. So maybe in 2, they're maybe somewhat leaning more into the Silent Hill inspiration with that. And also the idea that the sister you rescued in the first game, Caroline's sister, is sick and she needs to find like a cure. It just kind of, the plot sort of reminds me of something you would see in maybe a Silent Hill game. So it seems like maybe they're, I guess, whereas the first game maybe leaned more into Resident Evil 1, maybe this game is sort of going more in the direction of like a Silent Hill 1 or something like that.
Yeah, that could be, because like the game itself is already like clearly more Silent Hill oriented than Resident Evil in some ways. But I could also see them taking inspiration from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, that too.
Whichever version you prefer in that case.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the village setting.
Mm-hmm. I do have some suspicion that we're going to get more and more of the cult stuff, because like we should definitely this time around get more characters other than what we got now, because we had like what, 3 characters total.
Yeah, I mean, and also a lot of information about the setting and the other characters in the first game were conveyed through notes. I'm sure that'll probably be the same case in this game, but I mean, I would hope maybe there might be some different ways of showing certain things or certain plot points. I mean, of course, the first game, you know, not everything was conveyed through notes, but there were quite a few things that you just had to learn by reading about. But yeah, so of course, like, yeah, the setting's gonna be different. They're moving over to Unreal Engine 5, and we kind of got some images. I guess we'll kind of touch on some of the images we can see, where one image is just I guess we can kind of see one of the enemies from this game. Hard to really tell what exactly it is. It looks more like, you know, sort of your typical zombie enemies, something you would probably, you know, similar to what you'd see in the first one, which is, I mean, I'm fine with that, because I did like the, I guess, the creature design in the first game. So, I mean, it seems like the second game is sort of, is going to have maybe some similar enemies, but this is the only one that we can see so far. So we really just haven't seen enough yet of the enemy variety. It also shows one of the puzzles that you can take part in, which is good, because I mean, the first game had, I did like the puzzles in the first game. Some of them I will admit I kind of needed to refer to a guide, because I was kind of scratching my head at some of them, but I did like that it was pretty heavy on the puzzles. You know, if you remember, a lot of these survival horror games from the PS1 era, especially, had quite a few puzzles, especially quite a few puzzles that were pretty just crazy, that you pretty much would need a guide to figure out. So I mean, I do like, I guess, in that aspect, that it is inspired by, you know, those older games. But yeah, of course, it looks like it's sort of, in that sense, more of the same of what we got from the first game, which is fine. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I don't really mind that.
Yeah, pretty much in the same boat as you. I do hope they give us a bit more diversity, though. I guess that'll be my only complaint.
They give us a what?
That, yeah, like, you know, bring it on.
Yeah.
I said, I hope they give us more diversity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would hope that there's. I mean, because if you think about the enemies from the first game, they were. It seemed like they were sort of, you know, it was based on the setting and what was going on in the mansion. So maybe, you know, I guess, whatever's going on with this village, the enemies would represent that. You know, there is some kind of cult stuff happening, so maybe we'll have enemies that are, you know, of course you get your typical undead enemies, maybe we get some cultists or something in that sense, I would assume. You know, that, I mean, there's a lot you can do with that setting. So, and especially considering there are going to be multiple locations you can go to, I would definitely assume there's going to be actually, quite a bit more variety with the enemies. Because, it's as opposed to the first game, you just, it was the one setting, but I mean, you did have differences with some of the, some parts of the mansion where you go into the more underground areas. They'd be a little bit different from, the mansion itself, and there'd be maybe some different enemies you encounter down there. But it was mostly just the setting was just the mansion. So, where in this game, it seems like the setting is going to be just, I forget the location, but the, different locations you can go to. I think one was a hospital and the church and some other places. So I think there's different enemies that can represent those particular settings and what might be going on in those settings.
Yeah, it'd be perfect for them to double down on the Silent Hill references for like the hospital. Like, give us more nurses and doctors, man, because like that would be terrifying to see those guys just running around trying to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, and you especially with the final boss in the first game, it definitely kind of gave me some Silent Hill 3 vibes with that final boss. It reminded me a little bit of that. Also, I guess what was going on with the idea of, well, just what was going on at the end of the first game. It also kind of reminded me of Silent Hill 3. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely think this is more, there's a lot more room for the Silent Hill inspirations in Tormented Souls 2. Especially with them kind of, I guess it feels like they're sort of, going more into the religious element of it too, and the religious cult, or whatever cult it is. I mean, of course, there was a cult in the first game, but maybe this game is going to lean more heavily into that cult element.
So you said they're going to have a stalker
That's
enemy,
what they
correct?
said.
How should they? How do you think they should approach that? They should go with the route of Resident Evil, modern ones in particular, or?
Oh well, if you're talking about the modern ones, I mean, I would hope that it'd more be like Mr. X from the Resident Evil 2 remake, and not Nemesis from like the Resident Evil 3 remake, because I mean those were all very scripted encounters. I'd much prefer something like Mr. X, where he does follow you throughout the entirety of the level and doesn't really leave you alone. I would like something like that. Or I mean, even the original Resident Evil 3, where the original Nemesis was just completely very persistent in following you, and there are ways you could stop him, but he was always on you. So I mean, I would hope for something like that. Maybe there's some way that, maybe it's an enemy that can follow you. Maybe there are certain places maybe he can't follow you, but I would hope that he follows you throughout most of the map, and you kind of maybe have to try to find a way to shake him off. Maybe there's some way to get him off your tail, or to temporarily, I guess, immobilize him so that he's not following you. I mean, that would be interesting, especially if you're in a situation where you've got to kind of strategize. Maybe there's enemies around you and you need to get to a certain place. You have to figure out, like, okay, how do I deal with this situation? Maybe the guy is like right near where you are, and you've got to figure out, like, do I prioritize dealing with him, or like, what do I do? Do I just sort of try to run past him, run around these enemies, or I mean, how do I approach the situation? I mean, it would definitely contribute to some, like, I guess, pretty tense scenarios within the game if they had something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm hoping to lean more towards OG Nemesis and 3, because like I like what difference between like that version of Nemesis and like Mr. X is that Nemesis is a bit more scripted in contrast to X and RE2, but he has more opportunity to show up, because once Mr. X dies, that's it. Or if you're playing Claire, I should say, once he dies, he doesn't show up anymore, right? So I hope to take the opportunity where you defeat your pursuer and actually get rewarded for it. Now, whether it be gun parts, health, whatever, right? Actually substantial rewards that will make you want to fight him.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, okay, CC's here, I can avoid him and fuck off, right? I want something to be rewarding to fighting that pursuer.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that's a good idea, to actually reward you for trying to take him down, as opposed to maybe just trying to run away from him or something. I think that would be good. I mean, yeah, I would agree. I think it should be more in the vein of Nemesis from the OG Resident Evil 3 in that regard. and I mean, maybe there's even some boss fights with him. You know, he's just maybe just this sort of enemy that shows up throughout the game, and you know, you fight him multiple different times. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I definitely like to see something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately, like, just because of what we have right now and just the lack of too much information about this, there's just not really too much to say. I do kind of wish that we had, you know, I mean, you know, Dom would probably be able to provide a lot more about like what he would like out of the game and what his what he thinks about this. But yeah, I mean, this is I feel like there's really not too much else to say unless you think there's anything else we can really touch on here, because I mean, we have covered the trailers, or the trailer, I guess, the teaser, and the information that we have so far, which is just what the devs have talked about with what is going to be in the second game. But we've heard about what's going to be in there, but we still haven't really seen anything except sort of these still images that we have, as well as just the pre-rendered teaser trailer.
I guess that's one thing I could actually ask. Have you heard a save room theme?
Or checked the release? That's right, I forgot about that. Yeah, I did hear that. I mean, I like it. I like that they're doing the save room theme. You know, of course, it's inspired by Resident Evil the save room themes, but I like it. I think it sounds pretty good. I mean, the first game, I like the first save room theme from the first game as well. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's all I could bring up, at least up in my head. I didn't write down any notes, so I might be forgetting something, but there's always another time we can talk about this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we could say, you know, it does look like, of course, you know, I guess Caroline kind of has a somewhat updated design. Like, I mean, her hair is a little bit longer, and she does look like she's, I guess, a little bit more, like, scarred. Like, there's some sort of, like, you know, just scars on her face and stuff. Yeah.
You know what? No, fuck. Let's talk about that real quick. Actually, I wonder what ending is actually the canon one. In this
well, it
game.
Sounds like the ending where you get away with your sister, considering she's looking for a cure for her sister, and she's, you know, she's rescued her from the mansion. So I assume it would be, you know, the actual. I guess they would call that the true ending of the game.
Yeah, because it's rather interesting that it may seem like they both of them escaped together though, but it's interesting to know that they ended up in another location of wherever the hell they at, right?
Yeah.
So let's ask the question though: what the fuck happened afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we might get an explanation of that, because it sounds like there's. I mean, even though you rescued your sister, I guess I would assume because of whatever maybe happened with her at the mansion in the first game, that she has some kind of mysterious illness that she needs to be cured of. So that, you know, that's what leads you to this place in the second game to try to find a cure for her. I mean, I think it's a good idea. Of course, you know, even though you probably, you rescue your sister in the first one, it's still not, you know, you still need to, you know, maybe she still has this affliction or whatever it is. So, you know, you need to go somewhere to try to help her out. So I think it's a good idea for, you know, a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, and I'm just kind of reading through some of what they were talking about on the Steam page. They said, you know, there's going to be makeshift weapons or resource management. I mean, stuff we've seen in the first game. So, I mean, I guess it would be interesting to see if they do anything maybe differently with that. I mean, but I can't think of what, because, you know, the first game, you had weapons that you could customize, and you could, I think, you know, you could craft different weapons, but you also had inventory management, and I think you had item boxes too in the first one. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think you had ways in which you could sort of manage your inventory. Maybe they'll introduce some new elements with that in the second game, I guess, as to how you can maybe manage the inventory or create new weapons.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they should double down on the more unconventional
Mhm.
types. Kind of like how Dead Space did it initially. Yeah, because like they had like this weird pipe-looking shotgun, whatever. So I think they should continue to double down on some weird stuff if possible.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the first game, your main weapon really was the nail gun, so maybe they will have some kind of unconventional weapon as the main weapon in the second game, or they could go back to just sticking with the nail gun, I guess. It doesn't seem like we have any indication as to what the weapons or what weapons she even has in this one. So, I mean, I would assume that they're going to bring back the nail gun, probably, but I wonder if it's going to be like your main weapon that you start out with. I think you even had like some kind of like what was it, like a pipe shotgun or something in the first game? Yeah.
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 A pipe shotgun, which is pretty. Cool.
Yeah. So maybe they'll do something like that in the sequel. But yeah, I guess that's really all there really is to say about this so far. Maybe we'll do another podcast on this when there is more information. There's more stuff to talk about. I just like to see some maybe like extended gameplay trailers or something, because I mean, I feel like there would definitely be a lot more there to analyze. So maybe when it gets closer to release, they'll come out with that. Unfortunately, we don't yet have a release date for this. I would assume probably it's going to be in probably like Q1 2024 or something like that. That's just my assumption, but considering how far we are into 2023, I don't anticipate this game releasing before the next year. Especially also considering the little information that we already have about the game. I think it's safe to assume that there's probably not going to come out until next year, given all that.
Yeah, I wager maybe mid next year.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, I would agree with that. I think that's probably when it's probably going to release. But yeah, I guess that's really all there is to say about this so far. Unfortunately, there's it's just a pre-rendered trailer and the stills that they've released, also some of the information that we have about the second game, which unfortunately isn't too much to go off of. So like I said, until they release some gameplay trailers, there's not too much else to talk about, or even if they, I guess, release a demo. I guess a demo would be nice too. I think they did do that for the first game, so I'd definitely like to see that. But yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and do my outro in that case. I've been KaptainKaos, and you can find me on YouTube and Twitter at KaptainKaos. You can also find me on Instagram, where I post my art stuff at Enigmatic Arts. Do you want to go ahead and do your plugs, Brandon?
Yeah, you can find me on X.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hit that name. Yeah, you can find me on X at ImmortalBrandel, and I have a link tree there. You can catch my other affiliates and associations, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and until next time, we will see you all later.